Hello! Let's talk about better late than early as it applies to homeschooling. So, better late than early is really just a kind of a catchy phrase that I'm using here, but I'm talking here about the large trend within homeschooling advice to advise young mothers, such as myself, mothers of young children, to delay introducing academic learning to their children, to delay introducing a homeschool routine to their young children. I also tend to feel like this is especially advised toward mothers of boys. We're told not to introduce reading to our boys until they're maybe 7 or 8 years old, when they'll be able to learn it so much better. We're told not to introduce writing any letters or numbers to our 4-year-olds because their little bones and their little hands just are not developed enough to write ABC. So we're told all of this. We're very, very strongly discouraged as young mothers and as mothers of young children to delay teaching our children, to delay starting the homeschool routine that we are eagerly looking forward to. And I want to talk about this phenomenon today. I want to talk about this idea that within homeschooling, it's better to start late than to start early when introducing academic learning. I do want to address this issue because I believe that the movement toward it's always better to start later, it's always better to delay academics has become a bit of a blanket recommendation, and I just don't feel like blanket age recommendations are designed for the homeschool setting. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know that I am already pro early learning. I already talk about multiple preschool curriculums that I see as very high in quality and very age and developmentally appropriate for your young learners. So you probably already knew which side of the debate I would fall on, but I want to talk a little bit about why and some of the things that I think that this blanket better late than early approach just does not address. First of all, I don't think that we should take an idea that might have very legitimate applications to a traditional school setting and then apply that to homeschool. Because the fact is that a traditional school setting and a homeschool setting is very, very, very different. It very well might be true that a child might not have the emotional and physical and mental maturity at 3 or 4 years old to be able to handle being outside of the house, in a school, in a classroom for 5 to 6 hours a day in that type of setting, learning academics in that setting. That may very well be possible. However, could it be possible that the same 3 or 4-year-old that is not mentally, emotionally, and physically mature enough for a traditional school might be mentally, emotionally, and physically mature enough to sit down at the table with their own mom and learn about something? Do we see that these are very, very different phenomenons? If we apply better late than early to institutionalized learning to school systems, I think that there are a lot of legitimate applications. I don't lean towards sending my 3 or 4 or 5-year-old children off to a setting where they're away from their family and they're away from their parents all day. This is one of the reasons I'm a homeschooler. However, I don't think that we should take that application and then say, oh, so mom can't teach you to write the letter A. So mom can't teach you to recognize the letter A and say what sound it makes. So mom can't teach you to count to 10 in a couple of different languages. So we can't be taking these ideas that might apply to traditional learning and then apply them to homeschool, because homeschool is just so fundamentally different. It's a totally different experience. My second point is that free and undirected, self-directed play is not actually the antagonist of directed, organized academic learning. These two things can exist together in the same life, in the same day, and perhaps even in the same hour, actually. Within the better late than early, within this messaging, you will always see these two posed as antagonists. They'll be posed as a sort of dichotomy. Do you want your child to be independently thinking and creative and pursuing their own interests and playing, doing the work of childhood? Or do you want them stapled to a desk, filling out worksheets, becoming a robot that works for the machine? These are the options that we're given. I feel like that's a false dichotomy. I feel like that's a dishonest view of what early learning looks like in pretty much any scenario. Our 3-year-olds don't have a lot of responsibilities in their lives. Like maybe they dress themselves, maybe they sometimes get themselves a snack without asking for permission. They just don't have a lot of work to do, and yet they're awake all day long. They can play and do their own self-directed creative ideas for hours and hours and hours, and they can still sit down with mama and learn something that wasn't their own idea to begin with, and they can be exposed to new ideas, and they can practice skills, and they can play games that were our idea. We can have both. These two things are pitted as enemies, but they're really not. They are complementary. I actually think it's really beneficial for children to have both time that they get to kind of lead and decide what they're going to do, but also time when they learn, I can do something that was someone else's idea. I think that's actually very beneficial for children and adults to be able to say, I can learn from somebody else. I can do something that was someone else's idea right now. Those who say, wait, don't rush. Don't start early education with your children just yet. Childhood goes by so fast, and you're gonna miss this. You're gonna miss these years. I actually don't think that learning how to read or being able to tell you all the characteristics of their favorite sea creatures, I don't think that makes a child grow up any faster than they already are. I think these don't steal childhood in any way. They're just part of it. That's part. Yes, your kids will only be little once, but giving them skills while they are little, giving them age-appropriate skills, and also making sure that you guys have that face-to-face quality time, that is not going to steal their childhood from them. My third point is more coming from the experience of non-typical learners, of learners with disabilities, with special needs, and this is the fact that it's a myth that time will make everything better. Those who will really push the delay academics will always tell you, oh, just wait. Stop trying to teach your 5-year-old to read. It's going to be such a struggle. Just wait till they're 8. Just wait till they're 9, and it's going to be so much easier. Just like that age is going to just make it all work out. And there can be cases, I would say, like I never make blanket statements. I'm encouraging you to challenge blanket statements when they're made. So I think that there could be cases where when what you're dealing with is a lack of maturity in your child and a lack of character, and that's what's causing struggles in learning, in that case, when you take a break, when you take time to work on maturity and character growth, they might come back later better able to do their schoolwork because they've grown in their character and they've grown in their maturity and ability to cooperate and be a willing learner instead of a stubborn learner. That could be possible. However, when you're dealing with actual special needs, dyslexia does not go away when you grow up. It doesn't go away after 3 or 4 years of waiting. It's still there. When you're dealing with actual special needs, you're going to come back to this skill years later and realize, wow, this is still going to be a hard and long road for this child. I work with special needs students. I began working with one young girl when she was 3 years old. And when she was 3 years old, it was apparent very, very quickly that she deeply struggled with numbers. Numbers just did not connect with anything in her brain, and it was very, very hard to make any connection between numbers, even at that basic 3-year-old level. It's now been almost 10 years, and she's in a much higher grade. She's a preteen now, and guess what? Numbers still don't make sense to her. We have had to work slowly and long and try a bunch of different techniques and bring in different tools, non-traditional tools, to make any bit of progress that we've made in the past decade. But I can tell you one thing, if we had just decided to wait until she was 8 or 9 to introduce counting to 20, it would have still been just as difficult a journey as it was when we started when she was 3 with counting to 5 or counting to 10. When you're dealing with a learning disability with a special need that requires learning at a slower pace, that requires that this child just naturally needs to gain skills at a slower pace, in those cases, you're going to be glad that you had those extra years to build skills slowly at their natural pace than if you started much later and now you still need to go at their slow, natural pace, but you lost all those years where you could have been slowly building up those skills. So that is just a point coming from the perspective of if your child does have actual special needs, just being older is not going to make those go away. It's not going to make them not need to be addressed and those needs met. It's going to be the same whether they're younger or whether they're older. Now, the growing in age might help with other types of skills that help their executive functioning skills or different types of skills. Of course, many children don't gain skills at an equal level. Many have more asynchronous development. So that can also be a factor. You have to know your child of what's going to work, but this is just something to think about, that for many kids, turning 8, turning 9 won't magically make it easier for them to learn to read or easier for them to learn to do math. Number 4, one of the reasons that I lean towards starting an intentional learning routine at a very young age is because I believe we should not underestimate the role that habit plays in our child's relationship with learning. Is your child in the habit of finding learning a great and fun and also normal thing to do? Or is your child in the habit of basically planning their own days and doing whatever they want and being free, and they haven't built a habit of, hey, let's sit down with mama, let's learn something. They haven't built a habit of, I'm going to be challenged, I'm going to be uncomfortable, I'm going to be faced with new things that I need to learn today. I actually think that our habits toward learning can be really built in one way or another from a very early age. And of course, kids have their own personalities, which are going to feed into how they respond to their relationship with learning. Their relationships will be their own, but we can have an impact. I do believe that parents can have an impact when we start developing a positive relationship from a very early age, a positive relationship with, hey, let's sit down and learn together. So I want to leave you with this. And I know not everyone has a choice. A lot of you are coming into the homeschooling idea when your children are already a little bit older. But for those of you who do have a choice, those of you who are looking at your 3-year-old right now and wondering what to do, I would say my recommendation, my general recommendation is that if you have a choice between starting early and starting late when it comes to a homeschool routine, I would very much lean towards starting early. But start in the right place. Start and meet your child where they are at right now. Teaching reading doesn't begin when you pull out a phonics curriculum. Teaching reading begins when you're talking to your 2-year-old and saying, what does a cow say? And they're learning what a cow says, that a cow says moo, but a sheep says ba. That's where we're beginning to have those ideas of different things make different sounds, just like those letters. A says a and B says b. So begin early is what I highly recommend, but begin in the right place. Don't begin in the place that your child isn't ready for. Begin in the place that your child is ready for. Build the foundational skills that will grow over time. Now, if you're curious about what I recommend teaching in preschool, I do have a video of what I prioritize teaching in preschool. I could go through that all right now, but that's gonna be way too long, so I'm just gonna point you to the video. I'll link it in my description below. But I hope that this video gave you an idea of just thinking about some of the ideas why we might not want to just make a blanket statement that education is better after age 7 for every child everywhere, but to say, what could positive early education look like in our homeschools with our young children? All right, I'll be seeing you next time. Bye.